Good morning, Premium Gang. Nice to have you joining me this morning. As we can see here, we've had quite the ramp this morning after the jobless claims and the Fed announcement came out. Let me bring everybody's comments up. There we go. Hope everybody in the premium community is having a good morning. I have been running around this morning, so I apologize getting a late start to the morning. Just now having my first cup of coffee. And we'll wait for, there's only one person in here so far, Todd Father. Good to see you this morning. Hope you're having a good morning. Very, very interested to see if this morning ramp is going to continue. I just took off the overnight opening price, but as you can see, price was just chopping along. Actually had a little bit of a decline here from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then obviously the numbers always come out at 8:30. And then boom, big ramp. And that, I was reading some commentary that said that the numbers weren't quite as bad as they thought they were going to be, even though they are absolutely horrific. So in terms of what the street thought, the numbers weren't quite as bad. And then obviously the Fed putting out their announcement. The Fed's going to do anything they can, right, to try to keep the market strong, try to keep the economy moving at some sort of a pace, although right now it's very, very slow. Around here, the only businesses that, besides grocery stores and gas stations, that are doing anything are restaurants. So far, even though our governor yesterday extended our home shelter in place, the only difference between home quarantine and home shelter in place is home shelter in place is technically enforceable by law. You can get $1,000 fine if you're out unnecessarily in public. I mean, obviously, as long as you're not around anybody. I walk through the community every day. Good morning, Steve. I walk through the community every day. We occasionally will go up into the mountains, which are only 20, 30 minutes from my house, and we'll walk on nature trails and stuff like that. You can do stuff like that as long as you're not around people, but you can get $1,000 fine if you're caught out in public around other people. And he extended that. Originally, it was only for 2 weeks. Now it's through the end of April. So we know we're not going anywhere anytime soon. Got about 30 seconds till market open. Already it's pulling back a little bit, but that doesn't mean anything. This initial candle, as I tell you guys all the time, is really it's like its own candle for the whole day. The opening 30-minute candle. I was half tempted. There we go. I was half tempted to potentially get involved in oil because I know they're supposed to have their meeting today, and the anticipation is that they are going to agree both globally and between Russia and Saudi Arabia on cutting production to try to get prices to go back up. All right, let's see here. We opened at 277325. 2773. I got to get my opening line put in. Whoop. Help if I had the right tool. 277375. So once I get this put in, then we'll start looking at a few things. My eyes are really bothering me this morning, guys. So if I look a little out of sorts, it's because my eyes are bothering me. I hope I don't have another migraine coming on. The other day, we were doing one of our live streams. Right at the very end of the live stream, I think I even said to you guys that my eyes were starting to bother me, and it was a migraine coming on, and then had a migraine that afternoon. When I get a migraine, I know it's maybe a little bit different for everybody, but I'll either tend to see like blank spots, like there's parts of my vision, there's like blank spots, or exactly the opposite. I'll see these blue flashes of light, like sort of in my peripheral vision, and ringing in my ears, and then the dull pain starts to come on, which normally starts to come on about 20 minutes after all of that starts. So we have a couple more joining us. Okay, so far, ES not doing much yet. I did have an alert go off that gold was going higher. We can look at that real quick and then we'll come back. Let's see here. Let me get to gold. There it is. Squeeze in. Oh yeah, see gold gapped up big time. Probably had a lot of names gapping up. As you can see here, the advancers are in the 2500s. But gold gapped up right in between this support and resistance level. That's a big gap up for gold. GLD, I'm talking about the ETF. So it ended right here at support yesterday, down around the 154.59 area. And it gapped it up into the 158 area. So that's a huge gap up for gold. Like, see, here's normal gaps here and here. That's almost twice as big. And I don't have it extended across. That's really why the alert was going off. It gapped it up right into the middle of supply. So now we'll see what it's going to do. If we come down here, it's actually above 60, which obviously that filter is supposed to tell us it might not be a good short. And that would make sense. I mean, we're not saying it can't sell off, but big gap like that's going to probably act as support even if it does start to go that way first. But that filter obviously shows us that it probably would not be a great short. At least that's the opinion of the filter. Extend this. Okay, still not doing much. Watch it here for just a minute or two. Did anybody who's already on here, there's 4 of you right now, did anybody have anything specific they were looking at with a trade setup this morning? You had your eye on something. If so, we could take a look at it, analyze it a little bit more. I was reading the comments in the room. Somebody said something about they saw this hammer, and by the time they could try to get in, this was already shooting to the top. Okay, give me a second here, guys. Okay, just checking a comment there. So again, if anybody had anything they were looking at going into the morning, and one thing I want you guys to remember is when you have setups going into regular trading hours open, they're not always going to play out because of things like big gaps, right? You may be looking at something and the setup looks perfect, and then you get a huge gap up or a huge gap down, and it really kind of throws that trade out of whack. I put that list in the room a couple days ago of what a lot of big money traders kind of go through every morning. They sort of go through that list. There was 14 or 15 different things. And they may go through all of that, and then regular trading hours opens and a huge gap one way or the other throws all of that out, right? So then they don't take that trade. Then they start looking for other trades, based on whatever their rules and criteria are. They're still not doing much. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'll put an alert down here. We know it'll eventually move. So I'm going to put an alert down here. And then I'll put one above this wick over here. And then we can look at other things. And we'll know if price starts to move. Okay, Todd Father, I have a question. If there is a huge move like that, big green candle, and it blows through supply and demand or support and resistance level, does that negate those levels totally? It does. Not support and resistance, but it does negate supply and demand. So let's just say this was a supply level right here. Okay. It's not a great one. That's why there's nothing drawn in, and it just blows right through it. That's negated. Okay, it's gone. Because if it was really, really strong, it would have held even with the news, right? It would have held even with the news. There's been a lot of times, I know many of you are new to supply and demand, but there's been many times over the past several years since I've really been into supply and demand a lot more, where I'm just going to make that up. I'm going to say there was a supply area there, supply zone, and we get some sort of news, and I'm thinking specifically of some Fed news in the past, where Fed news came out, it was positive, it started to ramp, and it would hit the supply zone. And as soon as it would hit the supply zone, it would just sell right back off. And then people on Twitter, they'd be like losing their minds. They're like, oh, you see how manipulated the market is? You see, they just screwed everybody. This thing should be going and going and going. Well, no, it shouldn't, because there was a strong supply zone right above there. And if there were enough sellers there to absorb these orders that came up, and then ultimately turn it around to where there were still a bunch of unfulfilled sell orders there, then it's going to push it right back down. And I've seen that happen many, many times. Now, this really wasn't an ideal zone right there. That's why I don't have anything drawn in, and it went right through it. So that negates that. Even as let's call it a pseudo zone. Okay, it's gone. It is gone. But not support and resistance, because you can go through a support and resistance level. Remember, what are support and resistance levels? They are based on something that's happened in the past where price has respected a certain level or sharply pivoted there at one time, okay, which is respecting the level, right? And we're just identifying that for future purposes. And there are times where you'll go through a level, and then the next time you get back to it, it starts supporting it again. Okay, so yes, it negates supply and demand. No, it doesn't necessarily negate support and resistance. You are quite welcome, Todd Father. Okay, now we're starting to get a little bit of movement to the top side. And let's look here. Okay, next resistance level's 28.15, but let's go to the left. Let's see if we have anything in between there. Might have to go to a higher time frame. Yep, I will. So let's just go up one time frame. I go up one at a time. Okay, I'm gonna have to go up, looks like to a 4 hour. Here we go. So we got to look over here. All right, we just we just had our alert go off. We're going higher. All right, so we're going to look over here, and then you come over here and you see, now this is the 4 hour. Where could we potentially start running into trouble? Got to go up to where current price is, and then you look, well, we're already in it right now. We're in this wick, and if we get above that wick, for sure, we're going to probably get to this level here, this 28.15. So let's see where this wick is. This wick goes all the way up to 28.02 on the 4 hour. So we'll go back over to the 30-minute. Okay, so here we are. We know that that wick on the 4 hour goes all the way up to 28.02, so we're in it right now. We're right in the middle of that big wick that we saw in the 4 hour. So in theory, if we get over 28.02, then this 28.15 level should be a walk in the park, right? Remember yesterday when we were getting off of here, I was showing you if we got above that certain wick on ES, I told you, I said it's a virtual certainty that we're going to go to that next level then, and we did. We went right up, and we also saw the saucer. Remember, we saw the saucer formation yesterday. Okay, so it was right here. Okay, here was your saucer. And then we were coming up, and I said if we got above this wick right here, it was a virtual certainty that we were going to make this level, which is 27.21. And we did, right? We cleared this. Let's see here. It was on this candle. We cleared it, and then we just drifted right on up. A little pullback there, which is just structure. See that? That's just structure. A little bit of profit taking, and then we just continued on up higher. But we knew that this was the origin of the move down, and when you're putting in either a slow curve or a saucer pattern, you know, like we had here, that it's highly likely once you start back up that you're going to eventually get back up to the origin of the move. And we did get the little pullback. Remember how I told you when you get there, you're typically going to get you're either going to get a big drop away or you're going to get a little pullback, and then you go higher. It's just typically what happens. It's what happened. Okay. All right, price still trying to push higher. Remember, 28.02 is the top of that big wick on the 4 hour, 28.02. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to see if that's going to break. We'll watch this for another minute or so. See down here the huge ramp on our 60/40 RSI. Still pushing higher. Yes. Watching it right up here. I can squeeze it in a little bit more if that makes it easier. There you go. See, we've got 5 of you on here right now, so good morning to everybody. You see, we also, right here, we formed a little bit of a three candle pattern play. I personally don't like to see much of a topping tail on the resting candle, but right now, not affecting it at all. So we see here, we had our strong move down, had a nice hammer. Obviously this is news, but, right, price is going to go where it was going to go anyway. Well, it made sense that we were going to probably go up anyway after a strong move down and a nice hammer. Like I said, I think it was sunny, but somebody in the room said they saw this and they tried to get in. It was already too late. Price was already ramping. Okay, so then we come up. Does it make sense that we would pause right here? Absolutely. So that's what these two wicks are, right? You get up in here, resistance, pulls back a little bit, regains some strength, tries to push up, can't. That would be getting into that wick over there on the 4 hour, comes back down. Little small body here for arresting. Then we continue up. By our rules, right, we wouldn't enter until here. If you were super aggressive and it started going higher, you could enter there. But now you got to get through this wick and you got to try to get through that 2802 wick on the 4 hour. But it's right now 27.97. So right now it hasn't been able to get through that wick as of yet. We're 16 minutes into this candle. So again, we see the formation here, which was nice. So it made sense, and the news comes out, and it just accelerated us where we were probably going to go anyway. Vice versa, let's say we had some kind of signal to the downside, and we get that news. Well, in that case, we probably ramp at the beginning, and then price would turn around and start heading back where it was going to go anyway. That's what that means. Price is going to go where it was going to go anyways. It's just news will temporarily affect it. It'll either accelerate it to where it was going to go, or it'll go the opposite direction for a while, then it'll reverse and head back where it was going to go. Okay, took a little rest there. We had a wick about that size. Now it's trying to push back up. Again, we know 2802 is sort of the magic number. Because we're so close to it, I'm going to watch it just for a minute here. Then if it starts to stall out again, I'll set some alerts and we can start looking at some other things. Bring up the time and sales. We'll see what's going on over here. Again, you guys know I have it set to where I only see bigger orders. So sometimes you won't see a whole lot of action over here, but price will still be moving. That's because I have it set to only show 1,000 or more, 10 or more contracts. And then even there, I'm looking at bigger numbers, you know, like 42, 46, 50. Okay, pretty even right now, and that makes sense why we're just sort of going up and down, up and down, up and down. So I like to watch time and sales if we're struggling or if we get to a specific level like support and resistance. That'll help you know whether you're going to break through it or not, or if it's going to reverse. So anybody who doesn't understand how to use time and sales, let's say we were up here at 28.15 and we're struggling. What I'll do is I'll turn this on and you can watch, and as you can see right now, fairly equal. There's a big sell, 250 contracts. See it right there as it's going down? These are the newest ones, right? These are completed orders. So somebody right there, 250 contracts. But you get up to a level like this and you're struggling and you sort of want to know, you get an idea what's going to happen. You turn on time and sales. And again, you can watch all those onesie, twosie, threesies if you want, but they're not really going to make it do much. It's these bigger numbers, 10 or more, that makes it move. So if all of a sudden you're up at a level like this and you see this screen just go red, go dead red, it's about to start falling. So if you were long, that'd be a great time to get out immediately, right? Or vice versa, if you're up here struggling and all of a sudden you see this almost entire screen go green, especially with bigger numbers, that means you're about to break through. Okay? So I'll turn that on occasionally. You see, we're pulling back just a little bit. Okay? It's still a pretty good mix because see, that kind of counters 261 contracts on the buy side. That sort of countered that 250 to the sell side. Just glancing at this, for the most part, we're more red than we are green. So as it's slowly fading back, that makes sense, right? We got some green on here, but we're more red than we are green right now. So if your platform has the ability to let you look at time and sales, whenever price is struggling or you're struggling at a support or resistance level, not a bad idea to turn it on. That new platform that I'm fiddling around with right now, Webull, I just signed up yesterday and downloaded it. I messed around a little bit with it yesterday and tonight. I actually tried to place an after hours order last night, but I didn't get filled. Obviously, not as much liquidity post market and pre market. So anyway, they do have time and sales on there, so that was nice. But I'm still getting familiar with the platform. I'll let everybody know if I truly think it's good. When I told you guys in the room, they reached out to me weeks ago. Actually, what are we in now? It's April something. Yeah, it was weeks ago because it was in March. I looked up the emails when they started reaching out. And I didn't really know much about them. I mean, I'd heard of the name, but I'd never even looked at it at that point. So I immediately turned them down. They were wanting to sponsor the Simple Trading Life because they felt like they're a growing platform and we're a growing trading education service, and they thought there was a fit there. But I turned them down. Then they reached out like 2 more times, and I politely turned them down. Again, I hadn't done any research at all. And so, you guys know I'm going through this broker search right now, trying to find a new one. And they don't have everything I'm looking for. Nobody does as of right now. And I have checked with a lot of my professional trading friends, colleagues, peers. And what I keep finding, just like the guy I was telling you about the other day, who is the professional forex and futures trader, been I think it's about 22 years he's been a full-time trader. He said he's been looking for the same thing, never been able to find it other than Interactive Brokers, and he tried it and said it was a total disaster. And he's the one that he has like 4 different platforms that he trades off of, and he charts off of Thinkorswim and TradingView. Thinkorswim and TradingView. So I can't remember all of them. I put them in the room, but it's like Ninja Trader for one thing. That might have been for futures, and Owanda for Forex, and gosh, I can't even remember now. Maybe it was something called Trade Pro. I can't even remember, but he trades on 4 different platforms. So every trading day, he's got 4 different platforms up, and he charts on Thinkorswim and TradingView. And I mean, that seems overwhelming to me, but I've sort of been doing it, right? I've been charting and doing analysis on Thinkorswim, and then trading equities and futures and options on Tastyworks, and then trading forex on forex.com. Now I'm trying Wanda out for forex.com, which I like so far. I really like it so far. The spreads seem to be much tighter and much more consistent than forex.com. And they use TradingView for their charting. So that's already part of their system. Okay. Still waiting to see if we're going to go higher. You know, we eased back again. That's the second time that we've eased back and then pushed higher. Let's come over here and we'll just take a look real quick. Every time you open and close it, it starts all over. It doesn't just bring you up everything that's been happening. So now I got to wait and see if this starts to populate. If it doesn't populate, that means it's all small orders, right? Because it's only going to show me 10 contracts or more. So it's trying to push higher. Again, 2802 is the magic number. That's another thing. If you watch time and sales, start watching the numbers, right? See how they're jumping up? Went from down here, 2797, and now we're in the 2800s. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. You can watch these numbers. Besides the fact that, look at the screen, went almost completely green. You see this? Other than one or two red, it went almost completely green. That's telling you price is going up. But you can watch these numbers too. That's how the other day when we had that big drop I told you about, we were at 26.99, and then all of a sudden it went from 26.99 to 26.71, which almost never happens. I don't know how that happens. But I watched it. I watched it right here on time and sales. Right? Because doesn't it just seem almost unbelievable that there would have been no orders between 26.99 and 26.71? Seems that way. Okay, we got up to 28.01. We're still not over. That wick is 28.02, the high of that wick that we looked at on the 4-hour. Still not over. See how the numbers drop back down? Went from 2,800 and it dropped quickly back down to 27.97. All this is telling you here is that's where people are willing to buy. Time and sales are actual filled orders. You get the time, the number that they bought at, and then the number of contracts over here. Or if you're on an equity, it'd be the number of shares. These are contracts. So each one of these are multiplied by 10. 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 3,000. Excuse me, multiplied by 100. I said 10, multiplied by 100. Okay, here we go. See the number starting to jump? See how we're going almost all green again? That's why it's moving up. Okay, but that's how you use that. I don't necessarily trade off of that. I'll bring it up occasionally to show me when price is stalling, what's likely to happen. Good morning, Cathal. So yeah, if your platform offers that and you're in a trade, let's just say long, and you're near a target or you're not quite to a target and you see price stalling out, that's a very easy way. You can click that on, kind of see what's going on. And it'll kind of give you an idea, is the tide turning against me? If it is, get out, right? Lock in where you're at. If it looks like it's still pretty even or even, slightly in your favor, then you might want to stay in. Okay, so we poked our head above 2802, but we haven't been able to hold it yet. Let's put an alert here. Put one up there at 2804. Okay, there's the end of our first candle. So here's our first 30-minute candle. And as you can see here, like I said, we We formed somewhat of a 3-candle pattern play. Price pulling back a little bit. So we don't know quite yet because it's so early. We don't know if this is just a little bit of profit taking before it tries to run a little bit higher, or if that wick over there at 2802 is going to hold. We obviously know there's been a lot of strength to the upside this morning, no doubt. And we should have had it, right, based on what we've seen over here. Strong move down, nice hammer. Then we get the news right on top of this, accelerates price up. We get up into the middle of that wick, right? We have to go quarter to the 4-hour to look at it, but that's why I showed it to you earlier. This was in the middle of that wick. We push back down, we take a little rest, and then we go higher. Morning, Sonny. See a couple more of you just joined us. All we've been doing so far is watching ES. We did go look at gold because gold had gapped up into supply. We'll just leave this alert set for now, and then I'll put another one. I'll put another one down here. And then let's go back and look at gold. All right, got both of those set. Okay, so let's go back and look at gold, right? Let's see what it's doing. Okay. So what we know is that it gapped gold up right into supply. So once it goes above there, it's negating that. Okay, it's now negated. If it gaps it up just below it, that's one thing, but it gapped it up right in the middle of it. Then it went above it. Okay, now it's coming back down a little bit, but that's a big gap for GLD. We already looked at it, right? It was almost a $4 gap. Okay, right now, spinning top on the first candle, not doing a whole lot on the second candle as of yet. Advancers have went up, right? First time we looked at it this morning, it was in the 2500s. It's in the 2800s, so it makes sense. We'll just go back very quickly. It makes sense that we continued higher on that first candle because this number was increasing. So we moved up. Okay, see, there was the little pullback. Now it's trying to go higher. These little pullbacks, that's just people trying to take some profits, right? They feel like, hey, maybe I should take some profit right here. We've had a pretty good run already. Okay, we got that alert set. Let's go ahead and start looking at some names. Well, let's look at oil since we're right here. Okay, here's oil. So that was at 7 a.m. We had a big drop. I remember somebody posting, did you see that candle this morning? Big drop, right to support. Okay, we know they work. Right to support, catches a bounce, little base, higher. Then we get a momentum hammer. We continue higher. Right now it's pulling back. Does anybody know for sure what time they're having that meeting this morning? I don't know why, but like 11 a.m. sticks out in my head. The meeting on oil where globally they're trying to get everybody to agree to cut production. Sonny, what resistances on which symbol? On ES, on oil, on gold? Those are the only three things we've looked at so far. Tell me which level or which name you're asking me about resistance. Okay, we're starting to get a big drop here. We're back to these. We're looking at oil right now. Look at this, guys. Look at this happening in real time. We're breaking through two moving averages. That shows you the strength. Wow, look at it. Look at it right down here. trying to get through. So this will be the third time, right, that it's been at this level. Let's see if this time it's weaker and can get through. How about that? We're watching this happen in real time. Yeah, Todd Father, the meeting probably just started, right? Heck no, we're not cutting production. Okay, catching support again. Big drop though. Not quite as big as this one, but that's still a big drop. How do we know? Okay, 2680 down to 2516, 2517. All right, so that's $1, like $1.70 if I'm doing my math in my head right. I'm not always the quickest with math in my head. Okay, that's huge, right? We just watched that happen in real time. If somebody is short, okay, I don't know why they would be, but if they had their reasons for being, if they were short right there, probably made easily over $1,000 in about 1 minute. We'll watch it at, just another minute or so, see if it does anything. Sonny, I think they were having a meeting today. I read an article yesterday that said that many of the world's leading oil producers were supposed to meet on Thursday to discuss a potential agreement to cut oil production globally, because that's the only way that they're going to drive price back up is if they all agree to do it. And, as of last week, only some of the major oil producing countries were agreeing to cut oil production. They even asked Trump during one of the coronavirus hearings, they were asking him about oil because it's so important. They were wanting to know if America was going to agree, the U.S., to cut oil production. And he was like, well, I'm going to leave that up to our oil companies. But he said, I think they already have. He said, it really is only in their best interest. Now, oil is tricky. My dad is retired. He was an executive for the second largest oil and gas company in the world at the time. It was a company called BJ Services. And one time it was called BJ Hughes, which the Hughes was from Howard Hughes, obviously one of the richest men at the time. He owned part of the company at one time, and they were the second largest oil and gas company in the world back then. The only one that was bigger was Halliburton. And he used to tell us all the time, I was a kid, right? He worked in that industry for almost 30 years. He would tell me how manipulated oil and gas is, right? And countries that have huge supplies, reservoirs put away, they have the ability to play more games than other countries do. So you might say, well, shouldn't it be easy to get everybody on the same page? Not necessarily. Okay, Todd Father, I just read your comments, so that makes sense. The meeting just started, and you guys can read Todd Father's comments there. And again, Saudi Arabia and Russia are the two main sticklers right now because they're sort of battling it out against each other. And the U.S., according to what Todd Father is putting there, they want the U.S. to significantly cut their production. And I don't know if Trump's right or not. He was basically saying he felt like the U.S. companies had already started to cut their production. Again, because in theory, it would be in their best interest. But supposedly, again, that's kind of what I was getting at. Supposedly, we have some of the biggest reserves, oil in reserve, of any country in the world right now. In fact, I think I read something, it was either earlier in the week or last week, that we're even looking for additional places to store oil. Again, meaning in reserve. And so going back to my dad working in that industry, he was telling me about how there are certain places around the country. I know one of them's in North Carolina, and I've actually been by it, and it's guarded like Fort Knox. Okay, anybody who don't know what Fort Knox is, that's where they store all the gold, and it's heavily guarded, right? It's at a military base. And one of these oil reserves is in North Carolina, and I've been by it before, and it literally looks like a military base. They have armed guards everywhere and chain link fence with barbed wire and cameras and all this kind of stuff. And all the oil is stored underground. Okay, so I shouldn't say all of it. There are big, huge tanks above ground too, but a lot of it is stored underground because they try to protect it in case of a terrorist attack, right? If you guys remember back in the Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and all the conflicts over in the Middle East, what are one of the things that always gets attacked? Oil refineries and oil reserve places, right? They always try to blow them up and set them on fire and all that because they know how devastating that can be to their economies. But we have places like that here in the United States. I used to know where they all were. I think there's 4 or 5 main places around the United States. I just know about that one in North Carolina because I've been by it before. And if you were driving past it, you would be like, well, this is weird. You just see all these big oil tanks. And when I say big, they're enormous. And that's not even the majority of the oil. The majority of the oil is underground. And then, like I said, it looks like a military base. That's how heavily guarded they are. So we're getting this big bounce here. Okay, again, right off of support. So the news comes out, news goes down, catches support at a level it's already caught support at before, and we're getting a big bounce back up. Okay, we never had our alert go off on ES, so I'm assuming that it either is pulling back or it's still stalled out. Let's look. Pulling back a little bit. Right? We only had the alert when we left. When we set the alert, we were literally only about 50 cents away from it, and we never even got to it. Okay, so it's been pulling back. Yeah, I agree, Todd Father. I totally agree. Okay, you see how we pulled back? We almost got back down here near opening price level. Okay, but I set that alert. We were at 28.0350 right here. Okay, that's where we were at the high, and I expected the alert to go off almost, instantly when we left, and we just kept moving back, moving back. Now we don't know yet. Is this just profit taking, or is this the start of them reversing price? Because again, 28.02 over in the past was that big wick on the 4-hour. That was the top of the big wick. And so far, we haven't been able to hold above there. You can get right up to them, but you got to hold above them. Sometimes like yesterday, I'm trying to remember what time that was. Let me go back. It was right here. Okay, so yesterday, remember, we got right down to this level. I want you to look at that. Okay, see how this line on my cursor goes across? If we clear and hold that wick, we just end up selling off, at least to here, right? Because you got this wick here, and that was sort of a pivot, at least to here, if not, down to here. But we couldn't hold it. You see that right there? We came down, we barely poked our head below there, then it came back up, and then boom, then price reversed. So when you hear me say words like break and hold or clear and hold, this is what I'm talking about. You get right to a level, and this is sort of a little base here. You get right to a level. You may just barely poke your head through it, but if you can't hold it, right here, if they break through that and hold, I'm just telling you, price just would have fell away. It just would have dropped. Because you look over here, not a whole lot to stop it. at least until you get here. Now you do have the 20 in there, and that could have acted as resistance, of course. But this was at 1:30, and then this was the 2 o'clock candle, and right there is where it reversed and started heading back up. Okay, still over here, we're still dropping. Okay, so we may be witnessing, now if we get down here and clear this, we'll know for sure, but we may be witnessing a reversal. We don't know. We got a little less than 15 minutes to go on this candle. A lot can change right there, but we're right here. We were right at the cusp of going higher, and it's turned back around. Okay, we have our alert set. Let's continue to look at other things. All right, here's Apple. Okay, gap up, flush down, and then back up, and now it's flushing away right here to support. Right here to support. This is Apple. We'll see if we start to see any kind of a pattern or not. AMD, gap up, right up to resistance, flushing down, almost back to support. Almost back to support. So very similar to Apple. Amazon. Okay, smaller gap up, put in a spinning top, now it's flushing down. Okay, so you start already, we've only looked at a few names, you start to see why the market's pulling back, right? Everything else is pulling back too. They move in unison, the majority of names. Here's Boeing. Here's Boeing. Gap up, flush down, back up, and it's starting to drop. We are already starting to see a pattern. Here's Baba. Now, Baba's a China name, but it's doing the same thing. I was going to say sometimes the China names will do a little bit different. Big gap up. Okay, we went both up and down, ended green. Now we're selling away. Now we're selling away. Baidu. As you scan through things in the morning, you're looking for patterns. Okay, very small gap up. Big push to the upside, and now it seems to be turning around. Okay, Baidu. Little bit different because the rest of those names had big gap ups. This one had a small gap up and really thrust to the upside, but now it's turning around. Biogen. Okay, Biogen actually gapped down. Strong move out of the gate to the upside, and now it's selling down. Beyond. I'll talk about Beyond here for a second. Okay, decent gap up, pushed its way up, now it's selling off. Last night after the market closed, again, the news that I pay attention to is news that's mostly financial news. I don't watch regular news. My wife will watch the coronavirus stuff on TV, so if I'm sitting there, I'll see that. But I don't watch regular news. It's pointless. Okay, you will be a lot better off psychologically, emotionally, whatever, a lot more relaxed if you don't watch news. Until until the market crash happened, market correction, whatever you want to call it, until that, I hadn't watched news in like 6 months. I'm not exaggerating. Like 6 months, I didn't watch any news. And, I'll say that to some people and they'll go, well, how do you know what's going on? Trust me, you know what's going on. You don't have to watch the news. You're probably better informed when you don't watch the news because the news is almost always negative. Okay, they do studies and like 90% of what they put out on the news, on both network or cable, is either negative, sensationalism, or just something that is purely to try to get a response, right? Because all they care about is trying to get ratings. They don't really care about accurately reporting anymore. That went out the window many, many years ago. Many years ago. Do you know, I may have talked about this on here before, maybe it wasn't on a live stream, but I think I might have talked about it in the room at one time. Do you know the guy who used to run CNN like 20 years ago? He's like embarrassed at what CNN has become. Okay, this guy was the guy who ran CNN years ago. And he in interviews, he says, this is not journalism anymore. It's sensationalism. Okay, and I'm not talking about if you're on the right or you're on the left. That's all irrelevant. Okay, he's talking about from a purely news standpoint, it's all sensationalism. It's not journalism anymore. They don't care. I don't care. You know, CNN always runs those commercials about facts matter. They're just as bad as everybody else. Okay, CNN and CNBC, Fox. I mean, obviously Fox leans right. Most of the other ones lean left. That part of it's all irrelevant. Even ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them. It just, watching the regular news, it's not good. Steve, I see that. My wife and I were talking about that. Now, obviously, I watch more sports than my wife does, but it's amazing that with no live sports on right now, it's amazing the other stuff that you'll watch. Okay? All right, ES is still dropping. I'm going to come back and I'll finish my story on Beyond. Okay, so ES is still dropping. That's why the alert went off. We're all the way back to opening price level. Okay? So we got right up. We got right there. And we could not hold it. Poked our head above 2802, right? We got up to 2803.50, but we couldn't hold it. And now we're selling off. And now we're selling off. Now, if we clear this, man, it could really get going, couldn't it? See this? If we get under here, that's not going to stop us. And then if we get down into this candle, then you're looking at the 20 at being, you know, potentially something where maybe it could catch a bounce. So let's put, well, I've already got it. Never mind. I've already got an alert right here. Let's get it right up to the bottom of there. So if this alert goes off, we know that we're really starting to move down. Okay, so back to Beyond. I'll tell you what they were talking about last night. So I don't know if anybody has seen some of the pictures people have put on when they go into a supermarket these days. My wife hasn't taken pictures, but she's told me. She's only been to the supermarket 3 times, the grocery store, 3 times since this whole coronavirus thing has happened. So she goes and buys a whole bunch of stuff so she doesn't have to go back for, you know, weeks. But each time she's been in there, she said when you go to the meat counter or the meat freezers, whatever you want to call it, like 90% of it's gone. And almost the only thing that's left is like Beyond Meats, things like that. Okay, Beyond is obviously not meat. That's why it's plant-based meat. But one of the only things that's left is like Beyond Meat or stuff that is like super, super expensive. Like the really, really high-end cuts of meat because a lot of people can't afford it. So everything else is gone. And last night they were saying that Beyond might, because of this, there may be a shift to where people start almost being forced to buy Beyond Meat if this crisis continues. And they were saying how you never, let's say from a moral perspective as a company, you don't want others to have misfortune so that you can prosper. But they're saying that the longer this crisis goes on, it actually may be better for Beyond because people may be forced to start buying their product because there could be a shortage of regular beef and then people have to start turning to alternative methods or alternative foods, let's put it that way. So I thought that was very interesting. But you can see Beyond gapped up, pushed up, and it's been selling off. Come over here and look at this number, right? It's starting to go down even though it's high. We know that's basically because of the gap ups this morning. But remember, we started in the 2500s. We went all the way up in the 2900s. Okay, so this number was increasing. That's when the market was going up. Now from the 2900s, we're back to the 2700s. It's falling, and so is the market. That's how you read that. Okay, let's move on. CGC, we have our alert set on the market. CGC, just like everybody else, gapped up, selling away. Catching a little bit of support at the 20 here in the 30-minute. See that? That's CGC. Let's see, from the high, it was up here around 1527 to the low, 1465. 35 and 25 is 50. So that's like a 50-cent move. You make money on that on CGC. I tell you guys that all the time. It does not take a very big move on CGC to make money because it's such a high beta name. All right, here we go. This is Crowd. Okay, Crowd, man, look at the whipsaw. Gapped up, sold down, pushed back up, and now selling down again. It's a lot of whipsaw in the first hour of Crowd. Okay, the diamonds. This is the Dow Jones ETF, just like SPY is for the S&P. Okay, gap up, selling down. We've already established the pattern, right? We know what the pattern has been. We're seeing it over and over and over. Facebook, gap up, pushed up, selling down. Where is it catching support? Right here at the 20. That's a pretty big sell-off there for Facebook. 176.89. Wow, 171.65. That's $5 right here. $5 candle on Facebook. That's one heck of a sell-off. GDX, we've already looked at gold, and we're going to look at it again. Okay, GDX, just like everything else. Okay, remember we've talked about this several times. Gold has been moving similarly to the market. Gapped up, pushed up, now trying to come back down. Not as much as the stocks, okay, but still a similar pattern. Now gold, okay, gold gapped up, pushed up here to the resistance level, 158.53. Now it's selling off. This is GLD. Okay, trying to, but it's into this big gap. What do we know about a big gap? Okay, we need to determine from 158, I'm making this easy, 158 to just say 154, that's 3.5. So 3.5 would be 175, right? So if you added 175 to this, that would give you like the 50% level of the gap. Okay, so if you were trading this, you would want to know where the 50% mark of the gap is, because it would be likely, if we see continued strength, that it would get there and then it might catch a bounce or pause, right? It's not likely to fill this entire gap on the first attempt. Okay, so when you get big gaps, it pays to know where the 50% mark of the gap is. Okay, Google. Same thing, gapped up, selling off, catching some support at its 20. Right? You notice almost every one of these charts where the 20 is coming into play, almost every one of those names are catching support there. If there is no 20 on their 30-minute chart, they're continuing down. So moving averages matter. IWM, the small caps, okay, pushed up, gapped up, pushed up, selling down. Microsoft, gapped up, pushed up to resistance here at 166.83, selling down. Now it's finally broke below its 20. And now if we look here, right, you see where it stopped? Does it make sense? Of course, two pivots at the same level. All you got to do is put your cursor right there and look at it. Third time. Okay, so pivoted there, pivoted here, and that's where it caught support. Okay, Netflix. We'll go back to the market if we get an alert go off. Okay, Netflix actually opened flat and has been selling off straight down. Then we got a doji. Now, if it takes this out, you'd be looking at the 200, and then if it broke the 200, the 357.71. Could get really ugly for Netflix, right? If the market continues to pull down, okay, Netflix could get really ugly here. Okay, see where we were on Netflix right up through here, sorta in a range. Okay, after it had kind of got up here, sort of in a range, now it seems to be breaking down. Okay, so what do? We got to look. Okay, we look over here. The bottom of this would probably be pretty confluent with the 200. So if it takes out the bottom here, that's your first area that you would look at. And if it broke through there, then you'd be looking at it getting down here to this support level, 357.71. Notice here how it came down and it rounded off and then went back up. This is the opposite of a rollover, right? We would call it a rollover if it was up here and then starts to head down. Just sort of rounds off on the bottom, kind of bottoms out. Okay, these are all small candles that showed momentum was shifting. And then notice we went from more red to more green and then boom, then we shot up once we broke through the 20 over here. So anybody who's interested in Netflix, just keep in mind, you get below here, this is your next area. You get below there, this is your next area. Okay, Northrop. This is our defense contractor. It's the only one I keep in my watch list. There's obviously more than one. Lockheed Martin, which I believe is LMT. Lockheed Martin is another one that you could have on a watch list if you want to have a defense stock in your watch list. Okay, gapped up, has not really sold off like the rest of it. Flushed down early, came back up, and right now sort of flat because right here's where it would have opened up. Right there's where it opened up, and as you can see, sort of flat right now on the day. That's Northrop. NVIDIA. Let's see what we got on NVIDIA here. Gapped up and been selling off. Okay, didn't even make a push to the upside. Just been selling off the whole time. Caught support at our support level, 261.42. And now looks like it's trying to go down lower. Okay, so caught support, bounced back up to the 20. The 20 is now acting as resistance. And now it looks like it wants to push lower. So if it gets below here, okay, then here's your next level. And the reason we say that is because that's where a price pivoted. Okay, so down in here, like from here to the bottom of this wick, that would be your next area. Then if it got through there, okay, you maybe could get down into here somewhere. Then you have a gap. Right? That would probably act as some stronger support, this gap. So there's your targets if you're an NVIDIA player. If you break through here, this little area right through there, if you break through there, you might be able to get to the bottom of this candle or somewhere into this wick, but then you have a big gap to contend with. All right? So know your surroundings. Pepsi. Okay, Pepsi actually gapped down. So it opened right at a support level, so it made sense that it would spike up. It did. And then in a short term here, we've kind of rounded off and it's selling off. All right, this is Pepsi. Let me make this easier for you to see. There you go. Okay, so gap down up here is where it closed yesterday. Gap down, but open right at support. We know that that means it's highly likely to bounce, which it did, and now it's sort of rolled over and it's heading lower. How about this? We're going to look at the Qs next. Good job, Todd Father. Okay, so here are the Qs, gapped up, pushed down, came back up. Now it's selling off. Where did it go to? The 20. Aren't we seeing this pattern playing out, right? And when Toddfather says they're flat, he's talking about where they closed yesterday. They're actually down significantly on the day. That's why you always have to kind of take this with a grain of salt, right? Because of the gap up, okay? When he says they're flat, he's talking about where they closed yesterday. Right here's where they closed yesterday. They're absolutely flat, okay? But on the day, they're down significantly, the Qs. All right, right here. Regeneron, one of our pharma stocks. Okay, Regeneron, gap down, pushed up, come back down, pushed down to the 20, back up, and now it looks like it's trying to go down again. Well, actually now it looks like it might be catching a little bit of support because it puts in a hammer here. You see this? But this isn't a significant, it's not like it came at the bottom of this, right? If it came at the bottom of this, that's what you want to see. Now it still may start to go back up. That's a nice hammer, okay, bouncing right here off of the 20, and then obviously support is right there as well. If it could reclaim here, but you got a sort of a bigger wick there. Could be some struggle, all right? But if it could reclaim there, for somebody who likes this name, they might think about trying to scalp. Maybe you have a T1 up near the top of here and then a T2 up here. I don't know if there's enough reward to risk for me, but that is a beautiful hammer. If you could take the top out, you would love to see this at the bottom of something like that. Okay, this over here would be gorgeous. Okay, but it still may take the top of this out and go. Who knows, right? Maybe we'll come back and look at it. Roku. Okay, here's Roku. Okay, Roku. We're moving down, back up, back down, back up. A lot of whipsaw here. So we had a gap up, we pushed up, we sold down to where? The 20, our theme of the morning, right? Okay, now it's bounced and it's back up to resistance here at 90.75. Shop. Okay, gapped up, pushed up, sold down, right here to support. And right now it's just sort of hanging out, not doing a whole lot. SPY is going to look very, very similar to ES. Okay, gapped up, we pushed up, we sold down, and right now we're sort of inside here on the 30-minute. Tesla. For once, I didn't hear a bunch of news on Tesla this morning. Gapped up. Sold down, has come back up. Right now we're inside. If we start to see a lot of inside candles forming, that could be good for later in the day or later in the morning, right? If you start to see, because notice on some of these last few symbols I've been looking at, they're inside right now. Now we got a long way to go, right? Got a long way to go here. A little less than 21 minutes on this candle. But if you start to get a lot of inside candles, okay, we'll stop here and talk about this for a second because this is price action. If you start to see a lot of inside candles forming, especially if you get near the end of a candle close on your time frame, and you're seeing it on many different names, that could be a precursor to a much larger move. So whatever you like to trade, then let's just say the candle ends like this or ends as some sort of a spinning top inside. And on this, we would have went inside, inside. Okay, 2 inside candles in a row. Then you start seeing a move, and maybe the bottom gets taken out or the top, doesn't really matter. One side or the other gets taken out, and the market is also moving that same direction. You can almost bet that all the other names are going to be doing the same exact thing, and then you could see a strong move, right? So I'm just making it up. Let's just say takes out the bottom. You quickly, go over and you look at the market. If I can get up here, you look at the market and you know that the market's also moving down. You go short and it starts taking both of these out. Now this isn't a huge gap. I mean, that's like a medium gap, but if you started getting that momentum one direction or the other and the market's in agreement and you've seen all kinds of other names with a similar setup, that can be a precursor to a bigger move. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's go back. Here we go, Twitter. Okay, Twitter, gapped up, pushed up, sold off, down to almost the 20, and it's still sort of in a negative state. All right, that can't call that a hammer. Okay, I see some of you guys, and again, I know you're learning, right? And I'm not like trying to cast judgment on anybody. These little things like this are not hammers. I've seen several of you will say, oh, a hammer just formed on XYZ name. And I'll flip over there and it'll be something like that. That's not a hammer, right? That's not a hammer. This is more of a hammer right here, okay? You want to see something with a little bit of size. And if you have a doji hammer, okay, you want the open and close to be up near the top, and you want to see a long wick. That's when that becomes similar to a more traditional hammer. All right? Just because you have a doji where the bottom is slightly longer than the top wick, that doesn't make it that powerful. So just like, and I cast myself in on the supply and demand stuff, just like sometimes we're over eager to find supply and demand zones, and we'll draw some in that really aren't that good. Okay, might not even really be a supply or demand zone because we're over eager to do it. Sometimes we get over eager to find hammers and shooting stars. And then your mind plays tricks on you. You just see something that's shaped like this and you say, oh, okay, I got a hammer. I got a hammer on Twitter on the 30-minute. Okay, not really a hammer. And you want to see this down here. Okay, you want to see this down here. Okay, somebody the other day, and I don't remember who it was, it doesn't matter. I'm teaching here. I don't want, not like calling anybody out. But they saw something that sort of looked like a hammer, and it was after a candle, something like this, but it was up in here. There was really no trend at all. And they saw it up in here, and they were like, hey, we got a hammer on, ABC company on the 30-minute or the hour or whatever it was. And when I went over, first of all, it wasn't even really a hammer, but it was something kind of shaped like one, but it was up in the middle of a bigger candle, okay? You want to see that thing down here at the bottom, right? You want the body to be maybe like here, and then you have your long wick coming down, and if it tagged like a support area, that's the kind of stuff you want to look for. That's your higher probability play than something that develops in the middle of a candle like this that's not even really that great of a hammer. Okay, enough of that. I'm just trying to point out the stuff so you guys don't try to jump into low probability plays. All right, Walmart, exactly the opposite of the market. It didn't gap down, up, it gapped down and has been pushing up throughout the day. So everything else has been gapped up and then selling down. Walmart did exactly the opposite. Gapped down and has been selling up. Now, okay, we've got the potential here for 3-candle pattern play, right? It's right now up here to where it's almost ready to take this out, but we do have the 20 above here. if it would get some strength and take this out, then it has to clear this level right here. And then from there, it could really run. It could run up to here. That would be my next target, up here around 123.78. You guys see this? Okay, it's starting to take this out, but you got the 20. You got to know that, right? Because see, it respected the 20 here. Respected the 20 here. But if it would get above there, okay, then your next level would be these wicks right across the top of here. And if it cleared them, man, it would have some room to run. It probably could make it up here, up near the top of this candle fairly easily if those two things happened. If it got above here and then got above here. Okay, we got some congestion across there. Here, I'll draw it in just so you can see it. And maybe we can come back later. Might not be on today's thing. Maybe I could post something in the room later. I would say sort of like this. I'll make that gray. All right, see that? So we need to come up through all of this, and then if we break through out of there, it's pretty much a given, unless something changed, that it would make it up near the top of this candle. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that. Even if it's after we get off, we can watch it later in the day. All right, so let's go back and look at the market. Okay, see what we did here? We couldn't take out 2802 and hold it. We sold all the way back down here to opening price level, caught support, and now right now, what are we doing? As of right now, we got less than 13 minutes to go. We're inside. We're inside here. Okay? The only reason that would be important is if we end like this, that's going to be similar to a lot of the names we just looked at. That's what I'm trying to, get in your head, is if this starts to look like a lot of those names and we start putting in insides here on the 30-minute, or if you're watching the hourly, or if you're watching a 15-minute or whatever, and you start seeing that you get several names doing the same thing, including the market, and then we break one direction or the other, you would look for a lot of those names to do the same. So let's say that you can't afford or don't want to risk the premiums associated with the market. Let's just see what they are right now. I haven't even looked yet today. Let's see what the premiums are for today. Okay, there we go. Whoop, I went too far. All right, so to the upside, it's going to be half of that. So half of 1,800, half of 1,900, so 850. And then over here to be half of that, 1,800. Okay, so if you don't want to risk or don't feel comfortable with those premiums, which are still high, then what you would do is you would find an individual name, a stock, right, or an ETF that has lower premiums, that has the same setup, and you would look to take the trade if you got a break. Now remember, it has to have the same setup. So if it was inside, let's just say this ends as a spinning top. Okay, we have no idea how it's going to end. We're playing the theory right now. Ends as a spinning top. Then on the next candle, it takes out the spinning top. This is the market. And your name that you're going to play does the same thing. You're not entering on this. You're entering on the trigger on your name, but it would be in conjunction with what the market's doing. That becomes a high probability play. Because you're going with the market. You know you had several names doing the same exact thing. You find a name that you like that fits your risk profile. It fits your budget. Okay, so if you don't want to spend or you can't spend $800, $900 on a ES contract, you find an individual name or ETF, might be 50 bucks a contract, right? Might be 100 bucks a contract, whatever fits into your comfort zone, but it has the same setup and triggers at almost the same time as the market in the same direction. It's a very high probability play. All right, so we've got our stuff set. Let's do this. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to move it back up to opening price level here. Let's go, let's see what oil's doing since we last looked at it. Okay, look at oil. Look at this craziness. When we looked at it, right, in real time, we watched this flush down, and then it came all the way back up. Then look what it's done since we've been gone. Spiked up, and now it's pushing back down. Now, I'm not listening to the news, right, on what's going on with that meeting, but there could be a bunch of stuff that's coming out that is causing this whipsaw. I don't know. I'm not listening to it. But remember, when we were here, pushed all the way down, and then it came all the way back while we watched it. Then since we've been gone, it pushed way up to here, which is up around 28.35, and then it's come all the way back. I tell you guys this all the time. If you want to trade something that has volatility, it's oil. Oil has volatility all the time. Doesn't matter what price level you're at. Okay, I'll look at a couple of forex names, and I just wanted to see. Okay, AMD. Let me look at Boeing. These are a couple of names I pay attention to, just seeing if they're doing anything out of the ordinary. So far, no. Facebook. Okay, Facebook caught support right there at the 20. Oh, gold. Wanted to look at gold. I'm just quickly going through these here. Okay, gold opened up in supply, then we flushed down. The gap so far is acting as support so far. See that? It's a big gap. This is a big gap for gold. We already know it was like $3.50. Let's look at Microsoft. Okay. Everything is sort of in this pattern of forming an inside candle on the 30. A lot of them. Okay. That's what we talked about. That's something to keep in mind. NVIDIA. Okay. NVIDIA right now hanging out here at the 20. Netflix, that was one that was selling off. Let's see what it's doing. Okay. Right now, forming an inside. See that? Forming an inside. We've got less than 7 minutes to go. This is important information for you to know. Let's look at Roku. Just trying to get little updates on this. Forming an inside on the 30. See how many of these are forming inside candles? Okay, let's go ahead. We'll just start down here since we're already down here. Let's look at some forex. Okay, here's the dollar yen. Okay, dollar yen putting in structure to the downside. Okay, lower low, lower high, lower low. See this? So you want your eye to immediately go to that. Anything else that stands out to us? We may be heading back to test this downward channel that we broke out of. Okay, we were in a downward channel. That's why this is on here. We broke out, retested, went higher, retested, went back. Now it's rolling over and heading down. We could be possibly coming down to test it again. So if you trade this, that's something that you would want to know. Let's look at US CAD. Okay, US CAD. We were sort of ranging up through here. Now dropping. Okay, now here is a drop base. Could be a drop, but we're not dropping away very strong. Okay, so I would say no. If we would have continued to drop away, this would have been an area, even though it's one candle, that you would have wanted to know about. But unless all of a sudden this turns around and starts to fall, that is a no. Okay, so right now we're just moving down. We came back up to the 20, and now it's moving back down. It's US CAD. Let's look at Euro USD. I should probably just take these New Zealand names off of here. I don't pay any attention to them. They're on there, but I don't really pay attention to them. I don't trade them is what I mean. Okay, let's look at the pound dollar, the cable first. Okay, nice strong move here off the 20. Okay, structure going up, right? Higher high, higher low, higher high. Looks like we're putting in some more structure here. So you could look for a couple of different things, right? You could look for this up here to get taken out for another leg up. For another leg up. Squeezing it in. Okay, so, and we have some supply up here. Now we're a ways from the supply. But you could be looking, okay, see how we were ranging? See how we were ranging? And now we've broken up, sort of coming back. All right, I'll draw it in because that makes it easier. Come to the top of these bodies. Then come to the bottom of these bodies. Extend it across. Whoop, I didn't mean to activate it, I'm sorry. I wanted to make it gray. There we go. Last couple days, Thinkorswim has been moving relatively good, but it still occasionally gets the heebie-jeebies and kind of lags and gets slow. All right, so here's where we were, right? Then we had a break above. Now we're coming back to retest the top. Okay, when we break out of a range, what frequently happens, we come back and we retest. Now we look to see, do we start going higher? Which would also be in conjunction with this. Move up, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low if it bounces here and continues higher. And then we know that we have supply up here. All right, so you just keep that in mind. Let's look at the pound yen. Okay, here we are on the pound yen. Okay, working our way up. See this here? Right off of support, higher high, higher low, higher high, about an equal low, higher high slightly, higher low, higher high. Now if we end up putting this in as a low, that would be another higher low, and we would look to see, can we make another higher high? Now it's been a long time since I've talked about structure, because right now we're concentrating mostly on price action. I think it's in the lessons in the free channel, but when it comes to structure, what you're looking for is it takes 3 legs to really get a move going, right? So higher high, higher low, higher high. That tells you you're starting to trend into an uptrend. Normally, and again, these are just averages. Normally, a trend is going to lag from a structure standpoint no more than around 7 to 9 legs. Okay, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. There's 7, higher low, higher high. That's 9. That's what we mean by legs. So normally it's going to probably fizzle out somewhere in that 7 to 9 leg range. Can happen as quick as 5. Well, actually, it could happen anytime, right? In theory. But it could happen as quick as 5. It may take 10 or 11. But typically, once you get into that 7 or 9 legs of consistent movement, one direction or the other, then you got to start in the back of your mind, you got to start saying, okay, I probably should be looking for things like double tops, double bottoms, coming into supply or demand, things like that. Okay, those are just averages. So from a structure standpoint, here we go again. Higher high, higher low. 2, higher high, 3, higher low, 4. Actually, we bring it down here. Equal low, 4. Okay, higher high, 5. Higher low, 6. Higher high, 7. Now we're starting to get into that zone where we got to keep in our mind. We've already made 7 legs. If this is a bounce, we don't know if it is yet. Okay, then that would be 8. And if we made another higher, that would be 9. Then you're in that range. You got to start looking for things like double tops, right? If it's going down, double bottoms, things that start to signal this is over. And what is a double top? What is a double bottom, right? That's really all it is. That's showing you that momentum, okay, now we can't get any higher. So if we put in a double top here, right, if price comes back and then stalls out, you know, a little higher, a little lower, or about the same, and starts to come back down, we need to keep that in mind, especially from a price action standpoint. And if we get a trigger, right? If we get a trigger off of a double top, so we get a shooting star up here, a real shooting star. So maybe the wick goes up like this and the body's down in here, and we enter below and we start moving down, and then we take this out, that can turn into a much bigger move. Then your next target's over here. You take that out, then your next target's over here, so on and so forth. That's where trailing stops might come into play. Once you've moved so far, set a trailing stop, and if you double topped after a 7, 8, 9 leg structure move up, you may be in store for a pretty big move to the downside. All right, and let's go back up and look at the market. Is there anything else you guys want me to look at today? You know, we're right around our time frame where we normally get off. Okay, here's the market. This is ES. I'll get in a little closer. All right, our initial move up, we couldn't hold. We broke it, but we couldn't hold 28.02. Back down to opening price, back up. We formed our inside candle, and look what we're doing. We're just about to break it. Okay, just about to break it. So we would keep that in mind. This is on a 30-minute. And again, if you have other names that set up with this similar thing and we break and hold here and we start to move down, okay, we do have opening price level here, but if we started to move down and then we break this, if we break this, we're probably going to get through here. Then we have the 20. Then we would have 27.21 in the bottom of this candle. Okay, the potential is there that we could start to see some downside. And what you would look for is you would look for a name that's set up very similarly to this, that has either premiums that you feel comfortable with, or if you're just playing shares, has a price on shares that you're comfortable with. Okay, so you notice when we broke that, what happened? Very quickly, we dropped down to opening price level. Did you see that? How quickly that happened? When we broke the bottom of this, it immediately, right there was my alert going off. It immediately dropped right down to opening price level, which is our next area that we would expect to see some support. Okay, we're catching a little bit. I'll stay on here a couple more minutes. We're catching a little bit right there. And then you're also in the middle of this wick. You notice that? We're also in the middle of that wick. That's what I'm saying. If we get down here and take this wick out, see how these wicks over here are smaller? You take this powerful wick out, it's probably going to give you enough steam to take these two out. Then you would start looking at the 20. That's if it happens, right? Right now, we've got this wick and opening price level acting as some support. We'll stay on here a few minutes and see if it plays out or not. But we know what the potential setup is. That's how you think, right? You're always thinking ahead. You're always thinking ahead. And if it would have been the other direction, right? If we would have broke up here, then we know we got to get through here, 2802 area. If we get through there, we know we can get up to this level. We already looked at it. We know if we get above here, there was nothing to stop us from getting up to here. And then maybe that's your T1, right? Because that would get you about 15 bucks, right? That'd be a pretty good scalp. That's if it would have broke up. You always want to know both scenarios, up and down. Okay, downside, we've already looked at. Okay, if we can break through here and get below this, that'll probably help us take both of those out. And at that point, price could very quickly drop down to the 20. And then if you broke there, you'd be looking at dropping down here fairly easily. Unless big money would come in and try to push it the other direction. Which that can happen anytime, but you don't want to always, like, I'm trying to think how to put it. You don't want to live in fear. If you see your setup, you want to go with your setup until something tells you it's changing, right? Whether that's time and sales, like let's just turn it on. Okay, whether that's time and sales, whether that is a filter that you're using or volume or whatever that you're kind of maybe using to help you. Okay, so right now we're sort of struggling at opening price level in this wick. So I turn on time and sales, we'll watch it, we'll see, do we get any kind of indication that's going to tell us it's going to go one way or the other. Okay, right now we're not getting a whole lot of big orders yet. If this starts to fill up, then we'll start getting bigger orders. Okay, that's a pretty decent size order. 67, okay? Because that's 6,700, you're controlling 6,700 shares. Because that's 67 contracts times 100. Okay, but pretty equal, green and red. Pretty equal. Getting a little bit of a bounce here. Okay, now it's starting to turn red, but look at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers. Because that's telling you where they were bought at. So you could have red on here, but if the red is at a number where you're at currently, that's not really moving it. Right now they're going down. See this? Somebody just bought 10 contracts at 277.75. Okay? You see that right there? See how it went from 80, it dropped down $2.25. Now it's moving back up a little bit. It's showing you where they're actually purchasing at. That may be a little bit too much for some people to watch, but when you're struggling at a level, you can kind of turn this on and it'll tell you what's happening. All right, I'll get it off of there just for now. But we know, because we're going to jump off of here in just a minute, we know what it is. Now, let's say this starts to reverse. Again, this is a total hypothetical. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen. Let's say this starts to reverse and we come all the way back through and take this out. What does this become? A single candle power reversal. You take out one side, then you reverse and come all the way back through the zone and take out the opposite side on the same candle. Then you could enter there with a stop maybe, right around here or wherever you feel comfortable. And then you're looking for your upside play. The reason those are powerful moves, especially off of a doji or a spinning top, is because you don't have a whole lot of area that you have to take out to then continue up in a powerful way. Okay, where they're not as good is when this inside candle, okay, say you have a big wide-ranging candle, then your next candle is an inside candle, but it's a big candle. You maybe take out the bottom just barely, then you start coming back in. If it has to go all the way through there to take out the other side, that's typically not quite as good a play. Now, you showed all kinds of power to be able to get back through there, but you also run the risk of exhaust. This, when you have spinning tops and dojis as your inside candle, if you would get a single candle power reversal, that's when they come into play and are more powerful. Come back through here, you take this out, you enter here, you could still get, you know, one of these types of candles to the upside. Okay, right now, just a lot of struggle in here, a lot of struggle. But we know, and before we even leave, I'm going to set an alert right down here, because as soon as we get off here, I've got a couple of things I have to work on. Let me set this here, and then this will go off. Okay, and I'm going to move this one down to the top here. And now I've got my alert set, right? So if this goes off, I know we're continuing lower. If this goes off, I know we're in the middle of a single candle power reversal. All right, does anybody have any questions before we jump off of here? I mean, I've got time. I don't have anywhere to go. I just have some things I'm going to work on once we get off of here. I'm going to play around a little bit more with the Webull site. I let them know that I went ahead and signed up, and I'm going to play around with it. And if they're truly interested in really working with me long term, because I explained to the guy, I wrote the guy an email, and I said, hey, listen, I signed up. I threw a little bit of money in there. I'm just going to play around with it. If I like it, before I would consider doing something with you guys where, you know, you have any kind of a partnership, I said I would want, number one, I'd want direct access to somebody at your team where I could really dive in deep to the platform and even make some suggestions on things maybe I don't like or I think could be improved. And I'd also let you know what I do like, and then go from there. I said there's no way that I'm going to jump into something until I know for sure whether I like it. I'm not going to recommend it to people if I don't even know if I like it. But you know, initially, I think it's a good mix between something that's simple enough that a beginner could use it, but yet advanced enough that an intermediate to advanced person would get enough functionality out of it. Doesn't have everything. Definitely way more advanced than some sites out there. What I do like is it gives you real-time data at no charge. I like that. Gives you time and sales, which a lot of platforms in its, let's say, niche don't give you stuff like that. They don't give you time and sales. They give you time and sales. They give you financial data. The charting is not bad. It's not think or swim. Trust me. It's not think or swim, but it's not bad. I mean, they have enough indicators and enough tools and drawing tools and things like that that you can absolutely function at a high level if you need to. From an indicator standpoint, it's sort of in the middle. Okay, it's got enough indicators that people can use if they're into that kind of thing and studies, but it doesn't, again, it's not think or swim, and it's not trying to be. Okay, they're targeting a specific niche, right? They're targeting new, novice, and maybe intermediate traders, and then they know maybe a few advanced people will use it if they think it's simple, but they're targeting new, novice, and intermediate. When we say new, like people brand new to trading, novice, people who haven't been trading that long, they're still learning, intermediate, just like it sounds. Maybe been trading a few years, still growing, still on their trading journey. So that's who they're targeting. But they believe that they've given it enough functionality that people like myself who've been trading a long, long time, or some advanced people, can use it and use it effectively. So I'll let you know. You know, like I said, I literally just uploaded it. The positives so far my account was approved in like 1 hour, even though it says 1 to 3 days, I believe is what it said. And I signed up for everything I could sign up for, which for them, it's just basically equities and options and ETFs, equities, ETFs, and options. They don't have futures. They don't have forex. That's something I'm going to talk to them about and see, hey, do you have this coming? Because I know they've only been around for 2 years. When they very first started, they only had equities. They didn't even have options or ETFs. And then they added those next. So maybe that's coming. You know, maybe they're planning on adding futures in the future. And if that's the case, that would definitely make me more excited. But anyway, I'll let you guys know about that. Thought we were maybe going to see a move here. We're starting to go red again, further to the downside. Might hang out just another minute. Because I would love to see what happens if we break this here. I'd like to see if we get that quick drop down. But I looked into, I'll just kind of talk for a minute while we're waiting to see if we're going to get that break to the downside. I looked into E-Trade. I've got some friends who use it. I've got friends who used to use it, and I guess they were having issues. And maybe, don't hold me to this, but I want to say that like a few months ago, maybe it was about the time that the market correction happened. I think E-Trade had some big glitch. Because I know a lot of the people I know who used it, they were really ticked off about something at one time. And I think that might have been when all the volatility started. And I looked in E-Trade, they've got like, they have E-Trade, they have E-Trade Pro. I think they might even have some third thing, Power E-Trade. I'm going off memory right now. And then I started looking into things and it gets a little convoluted and it wasn't easy. I like things that are easy. Okay, even Thinkorswim, it's just so robust that it intimidates a lot of newer traders. Once you know what you're doing with the Thinkorswim, it's got like all the tools. Okay, that's why a lot of advanced people like it, because it's just got pretty much everything. Now, trying to think what else I looked at. I already told you what happened with TradeStation. I would love to use TradeStation if you could do everything. You have to have multiple accounts. So if you want to trade equities and options, you have one account. If you want to trade futures, you have another account. If you want to trade futures options, I believe it's a third account. So I don't like that. I mean, I think these platforms should make it easy, right? Okay, they should make it easy. What was some of the other things? I listed them in the room. There was like 5 things, and I was working directly with somebody from TradeStation, and you know, unfortunately, I love their tools. I love the simplicity. Throughout research, they're known as probably having the best mobile app of any broker, TradeStation, and I was able to bring it up on my phone. Their mobile app is phenomenal. So easy to use, lots of functionality. But then they have a desktop version that is the more robust. You know, it's sort of like a Thinkorswim. It's the most robust platform they have, TradeStation, but it's not compatible with a Mac. Everything I use is Mac. So that didn't do me any good, right? So they're like, yeah, you can download, I think it's Parallels. I actually had a friend who used to work for Parallels, so I know them very well. You can download Parallels. Parallels will allow you to run Windows on your Mac. Then you can run TradeStation on Parallels. Well, the guy who originally recommended TradeStation to me, that's what he does. And he said, it's a little glitchy. It's a little glitchy. If you're on their web-based platform or you're on their mobile, those are optimized for Mac, iOS. Okay, so those are nice, but they don't have all the functionality that the desktop has. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, I may have lost you guys. On my phone, it says I lost you. Please respond if you guys can still hear me. Can you guys still hear me? On my end, it said I lost connection, so I'm just making sure that you guys are still there. If not, then I'm just going to go ahead and end it. Okay, you guys can still hear me. I don't literally. I just got a message said connection lost on my end. So apparently it was quick enough that it didn't cut everybody off. Yeah, I've been waiting for this break too. We keep getting right down to it, and then it'll bounce back up. Right down to it, and then it bounces back up. All right, guys. I tell you what, it may or may not happen, but you know what to watch for. And I'll let everybody go, and then I'll see you guys in the room a little bit later this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll do it again tomorrow. And obviously, we'll be interacting in the room today. Bye-bye, guys. See ya.